Right. Well, I'm just funny because I was just doing a bit of research on you as you do before an interview, and found out you're a big Spurs fan. And obviously, I'm a Spurs fan myself. So,
Oh yeah,
I'll save I'll save that for the end though.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah. I watched the Winter Lake last week. I thought it was brilliant, and I thought you were fantastic in the lead role. I mean, this character is such a kind of challenge. Well, he's kind of quite an unstable, quite in some ways quite troubled character who's quite alienated from those around him. It must have been quite a challenge kind of getting into his head, but I guess a really enjoyable challenge for an actor.
Yeah, it was an incredibly enjoyable challenge. I think the thing that helped the most with kind of being on getting into the headspace and wavelength that he sort of exists on was where we shot, because we shot in this incredible rural part of Ireland in Sligo, the Sligo and Leitrim area. And the landscape is so wild and sort of feral and untamable. Like we shot in this house. Funnily enough, a member of Westlife used to own the house that we shot in. And but it was this random house that sits on top of a hill in County Leitrim. And it's just sort of, I mean, the only living things around it are wildlife and sheep for miles. There's no one lives near this house. And the way the trees and the bushes roll along the hills and everything, it's just, like thorn bushes everywhere. Everything's designed to sort of trip you up around there. It's not somewhere you'd like go walking, for example. And it just kind of felt like when I got there, yeah, this is somewhere where Tom could thrive, because this is somewhere where he can be on his own and he can just explore and kind of be at one with nature. So the area we shot in was really good. And also Phil, the director, he was, we had this incredible rehearsal process where I landed in that part of Ireland about 3 weeks before we started shooting. And it was basically just me and Phil there to start with. And we were like two kids in a sweet shop or something, like building this incredible character. And we'd meet up and like discuss ideas about the way that his attitude towards certain things. And so, yeah, it was an incredibly enjoyable process, including Tom. Yeah.
Because I mean, Tom's on this. We only it's not a film that's kind of littered with kind of flashbacks. But we only see him in this kind of quite brief period. But we gather from spending that amount of time with him, he's obviously got some memories there, or things that have happened in his life that have led to him being the way he is now. I just wondered if you map those out, or is the kind of knowledge of a difficult past enough for you to work with, or do you need more in-depth kind of specific memories to kind of create to help base the character in?
Definitely. Good question. I like that question. Yeah, it's something I thought about a lot, actually, because, yeah, no, absolutely. And I do that with every character I work with now, actually. I think to have, so I build like a key facts bank about my character, and to have certain memories that you can recall upon in certain situations. Like if, say, for example, Tom's having an argument with his mum, Elaine, which happens quite a lot in the film. It's good to have something in the back of my head that I can relate to perhaps a specific event when they really badly fell out when he was younger, that he doesn't want to revisit. That type of thing is so important. And I always try and do that, because, things that happen in anyone's life are what inform the person they become, I suppose. And so to have sort of certain traumas that he doesn't like to think about, but that pop into his head when certain things in the film happen, was really important. So, yeah, the difficult past is sort of what you read in the script, and it's often not prescribed by the writer. So that's the really fun part of being an actor is, right, I'm going to go away now and work out exactly what these things are. And it's always good if you think of it yourself, because certain things personally would obviously affect me more than, different to what it would affect the writer. So, I can go away and build these really difficult things that might pop into Tom's head at any time. And then you just sort of have them in the back of your head, and you get on camera, you don't plan what will happen, and then they pop into your head, and all of a sudden, something really bad happens.
Yeah, because I always feel like if I was doing what you do, I'd have, like detective in TV films. They've got loads of pictures on a wall with kind of like red lines and arrows. I feel like I'd do that to kind of map out my character.
You genuinely do, yeah. And it's funny because I normally do everything on paper, which obviously isn't very good for the planet, but I'm normally good. But with because it's kind of like, I mean, the only thing I can really relate it to is like art at school. When you're doing art at school and you've got all these pieces of paper in front of you and you're cutting and sticking and gluing and all sorts. That is kind of genuinely what I do. But I'm doing a job at the moment where it's based on real life, like an actual person. So I'm having to constantly do things online. So I'm slowly moving into doing everything on my MacBook, but I still definitely prefer you know, like you write things out on a piece of scrap paper when you get an idea in your head, then you cut it out and you stick it, and eventually you create this scrapbook of your character. That's really helpful.
Yeah. Can you see yourself kind of doing that, kind of having that approach kind of for good? Because I always imagine it, as with acting, I guess with any profession, that when you might have been doing it for 30 years, 40 years, and you've starred in 50 films or something, it could be great, very easy just to do it as like a kind of a job. But it sounds like you've got this kind of real enthusiasm and you like the whole process side of it. Are you hoping that will be something that really sticks with you throughout your career?
Oh yeah, it's the most, it's definitely, it's the most fun part of the job, and that is what I love, you know, like dropping into other people's lives and thinking about what upsets them or what has led them to be where you find them in the film. Like with Tom, you find him at a very specific part of his life where he's obviously there's obviously something's happened that doesn't specifically get spoken about in the film that has led to him and his mum Elaine living in this abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. You know, they've fled some sort of trauma. And so coming up with all those things, the things that aren't exactly prescribed in the script, is the most interesting part. And I learned this process pretty much because I didn't go to drama school. When I did Blackbird in 2018, I worked with an incredible cast. And I remember we were at pre-COVID times, you could just go around people's houses. We were at Kate Winslet's house while we were filming one day, and I went into her study.
Pre-COVID, I never went to Kate Winslet's house.
Oh, you didn't? Maybe post-COVID, you'll try and get an invite. I went into her study and she had all these pieces of scrap paper everywhere, all the characters she was building on the script she's working on. And I thought it was amazing. It was just so interesting. And I always had instincts to do stuff like that, but never to go into the level of detail that I saw she did. And so I shot The Winter Lake just after I did Blackbird. And I remember being so excited to use these tools I'd learned off the likes of Kate Winslet and Susan Sarandon in character building and making my own character. So, and I mean, Kate Winslet's probably done over 50 films, and she's definitely, I mean, I think she's kind of done all right for herself, and she's still doing it. So I suppose I will.
Yeah. Well, I always like the fact that was it Robert De Niro to play Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver actually became a taxi driver. And you just think probably didn't need to do that, but I love the idea that he felt he needed to. I think that's really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, that kind of thing is always really good. And it's like when we did 1917, obviously the budget is huge on something like that. So we spent ages before we were playing soldiers in the trenches, being living the experiences that's, well, not quite as bad, but living the experiences that soldiers had. And on Blackbird, like we spent a week before we started filming, just living together and seeing what it would be like to be a family. And then I went on something like The Winter Lake, which obviously has, you know, nowhere near the budget, but it was equally as incredible because I kind of had to make it for myself, which is what Tom does. And like I say, I went there 3 weeks before we started and there was no one there. So I felt really isolated and kind of lonely in the best way because it really put me in the headspace of the character. And then I took myself off on all these excursions around sort of like the northern peninsula of Ireland and stuff like Tom would have done, just love to explore the local nature and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, like I was going to say, you mentioned obviously the kind of notion of family. Well, this cast in The Winter Lake is a very small cast. It's effectively kind of really 4 like leading roles. And usually what comes with sets like that, and I've been on a few sets like that before, which is if the actors become a very close knit kind of group with a real good camaraderie. Was it quite hard in some ways to move between that kind of, I imagine, quite close-knit camaraderie, but with just the other 3 actors, to then having to perform what were quite intense, quite cold relationships, really, between all of them?
Yeah, it is because, and like you say, there's, especially between my character and the character of my mum, Elaine, played by Charlie Murphy, there's a real barrier in between them. You can really feel it. I hope anyway. I could certainly feel it when we were there filming. And so obviously we'd spend weekends, you know, hanging out together and stuff because we were all bunking in the middle of nowhere. But certainly when we were on set, there was kind of this sort of general atmosphere that we wouldn't cross the line of being too friendly with each other, you know, in a nice way, just to make sure that barrier was always kind of up. And it was really incredible, actually. So the producers and the director, it was important for them that we had a hot set. So because we were in this house most of the time, that means that all the rooms are ready to be filmed in at any one time. It's not like, you know, all the grips are packing their equipment into the living room, because we could have the freedom, you know, if me and Charlie, Elaine, had a huge argument in the kitchen and I wanted to storm out and run into the living room, I could do so and the camera could follow me and the living room would be ready. And so, like I say, there was sort of this general atmosphere set up on set that everything was how it should be on camera, you know, in the film, in the story, which was super helpful because like you say, we wanted to build that camaraderie, and obviously as humans we wanted to be mates and stuff, and we had a great time. But that was, so something like Blackbird, you want that to bleed onto the screen because you want people to see you as a family. But for that, we wanted people to see us as four strangers that had landed together, I suppose. So we had to kind of make that work.
Yeah. What was it like working with Emma on this? Because obviously she's kind of burst onto the scene in Sex Education, which has been a kind of global sensation. we've interviewed her a couple of times here, and she's been great. But she's the kind of one character that there is more warmth between yourself and between Tom and another character. That must have been great to collaborate with her so closely on this project.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention it because I remember I had been cast as Tom, and then they had some ideas of who they might want to play Holly, and so they rented out this little studio space in South Bank, and they were like, oh, you know, Anson, can you come in and read with a few Hollies? And I got out off the tube at Waterloo, and I was walking to the studio, and I remember seeing this huge poster, you know, like you do the billboards outside Waterloo, Sex Education coming to Netflix, and Emma's face huge. I was like, isn't that who I'm about to meet? And then she walks in and reads with me. So yeah, like she did genuinely burst onto the scene as we were doing that. But it was great, and we were sort of in a similar place in that we'd both just done some cool jobs sort of close together, and learned from some really great actors. You know, she'd worked with Gillian Anderson, and so we were kind of really excited to sort of be at the forefront of this film and try out our own thing, you know, and you know, use the tools that we learned off all these other people. So it was just really exciting. We were both just very young and kind of didn't know what we were doing, but were trying to know what we were doing. And it was a great experience. And we learned, I think, so much off each other, and really bounced off each other with ideas and stuff. And then on screen, I learned everything off her, and she maybe learns a bit of compassion off me. And yeah, it was an interesting relationship, and it was great to work with her.
It's great thing to acquire, isn't it? The notion of learning from your co-stars. I mean, when you've worked with people like Kate Winslet or Susan Sarandon, or you've been directed by Sam Mendes or Roger Michelle, I mean, these people are there to be learned from, aren't they? That must be. Are you kind of consciously, do you think, looking out to kind of take things from them and kind of like try and study them and the way they work, and you sort of utilize their craft, or do you think it's just a kind of a subconscious thing of just happening to be in and around the same space as them?
I think it's impossible not to pick it up because I was kind of a blank canvas, because I hadn't been to drama school. I didn't really have any process or anything. And I used to listen to a lot of, I'd watch a lot of videos of actors talking about their, like this kind of thing, talking about their process, or listen to podcasts. And I always found it really interesting. But yeah, I mean, especially when I did Blackbird, it was the first job I'd been in where I had to work every day, where I was playing a main character. And so to be with all those actors, it was just like, I was just drinking it all in, all this information. It was amazing. And then I think I learned the value of doing that on Blackbird. So now, especially I love listening to directors. Like when I did 1917, working with Sam Mendes was incredible, sort of his enthusiasm and his passion for each of the separate characters. And I was juggling 1917 with The Winter Lake. So while I was filming The Winter Lake, I was going from, either end of the spectrum, in terms of like budget and scale, which was really helpful as an actor to see how different things get made at different ends of the industry. And what was great was working with Phil Sheeran on The Winter Lake. He was, again, so enthusiastic and so saw everything from each character's angle. He didn't vilify anyone specifically, because it would be quite easy to vilify people in The Winter Lake, but he sort of saw why everyone had ended up in the headspace that they were at. And so to work with all these great directors, it's just been remarkable, really, and to pick up tools from actors is just, and then now I've come into the job that I'm doing now, and I feel like I've got my little toolbox, that I've picked out all the best bits that work for me from all the great people I've worked with, and I'm putting it all into practice.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible couple of years it's been. It's real whirlwind, doesn't it? Is it still quite surreal? Has it got normal yet, kind of seeing your face on screen and being in and around those places? Or is it still a kind of sense of kind of adjusting to it?
Yeah, it's not normal. It's great. But I didn't grow up in circles like this at all. So what's great actually is everyone around me in my personal life, outside work, is really new to it as well. So we're all sort of going through it together, like my family and my friends, and we're all sort of adjusting to it together. But I don't ever think I want to lose the excitement of seeing myself on screen or something like that, because it is really cool. You know, I love it. It's all I ever wanted to do was be an actor and see myself on the big screen, and now it's happening. It feels amazing. So no, I haven't adjusted, and I don't want to adjust. I don't think right now. I'm kind of enjoying the sort of craziness of it all.
Yeah, of course. Because I mean, you mentioned that you didn't sort of go to drama school, but it sounds like something you've always wanted to do. So, what is your route into this? How did you become the actor you are now?
I went to like local drama clubs near where I lived out of London, and I knew that being an actor is what I wanted to do. So I think I typed in on Google London acting agents and must have wrote to about 35 people, like a stupid amount of agents. And I think I got one reply from this lovely lady in South London who asked me to meet her, and I met her. I was 17, and she took me on, and I used to audition for commercials and short films and stuff. I did a few short films, and then she put me up for a part of basically a featured extra in the Netflix series The Alienist. And so I got the part in that. It was kind of an open audition. They needed loads of young lads to be in it. And the director liked me so much, he gave me lines. And then sort of from that, I managed to get better auditions and sort of, worked my way up. But yeah, I suppose I was really lucky, but I did work hard because I really knew it was what I wanted to do. And I knew that it would never come to me. I just wasn't the sort of person that it would come to me. So I had to go to it, and I just banged on people's doors until they listened, I suppose.
Yeah. Did you have a backup career in mind? What do you reckon you might be doing if it hadn't worked out? No.
I don't know what I would be. I suppose, I mean, all my mates are just like tradesmen. So maybe I would have ended up doing something like that. I don't know. But I wouldn't have ended up doing anything other than being an actor, because that's just what I had to do it. I really wanted to be an actor. I just love like the collaboration and playing pretend. It's just so much fun.
Yeah. Did it feel accessible, do you think, when you first got into it? Because like you said, there does seem to be, for so many people, it seems you have to go through the drama school thing. And usually what comes behind it can often be wealth, can often be parents paying for drama schools and things like that. And it can often, there has been criticism of the industry sometimes for being a little bit too narrow-minded in some ways. So did it, when you first broke into it, did it feel like an accessible thing, or did it feel like something that you really, because I guess it sounded like there's maybe more grafting attached, something that you really had to work for?
There was a lot of grafting, but I completely know what you mean. And it's good that they're setting up all sorts of schemes and stuff now so that drama schools are more accessible to people. But I think the drama school route is right for a lot of people. I was really, really determined, and I just wouldn't take no for an answer. But I'm quite strong-willed like that, and it's not, as I suppose, as easy as that for some people. And a lot of actors are incredibly shy and wouldn't do the crazy things that I did to try and get noticed or picked up. So I think the drama school route is right for a lot of people, and it's I work with loads of actors that have been to drama school, and they're amazing. You learn great processes, and then at the end, it's a lot easier to get an agent because agents will come and watch your drama school show. But yeah, it's certainly I think like a lot of industries, it isn't like if you want to be a footballer, it's difficult to get into, and it's obviously easier for certain people. But like I say, there's a lot of change happening, and hopefully schemes to make drama schools more accessible are being put into effect.
I mean, I still want to be a footballer. I still haven't given up. I'm 32 now, so I could still get into that Spurs side.
Maybe that's what I would have been if I wasn't an actor.
Yeah,
Probably not. I'm rubbish. But...
I'm in the same school year as Gareth Bale, and he's still playing, so you never know.
Are you? Well, yeah, he's playing well as well. Yeah.
But I was going to say, I mean, sort of, can't not speak to you about this project. I think the one you've been when you've been saying you're working at the moment, I think you're talking about the Johnny Rotten one. I assume, yeah. I mean, that's really exciting. I just wanted to know, firstly, how that experience has been going for you. I mean, working with Danny Boyle, playing an icon, it must be a real incredible, just part of a real adventure to some ways to be a part of that project.
Yeah, it's definitely a pinch me moment. It's and like I say, it's been my transition of my my prep for a character, because normally I do everything on paper, whereas for this, because I'm playing a real person, I'm constantly googling stuff or looking at videos or reading articles, so I have to do everything on my MacBook now. But no, we're having so much fun. Obviously, I can't say much about it, but Danny is just the best. He's just so good to work with, and I feel so lucky to have worked with the likes of Danny and Sam, but also Phil, who directed The Winter Lake. That these guys, they're all so passionate about their characters and about young actors and wanting to sort of share their experiences with young actors. But I'm having an absolutely great time, I can tell you that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know you obviously can't speak about it too much, but the only thing I did want to ask is just whether you've spoken to Johnny himself, if that's.
Oh, I can't reveal that. I can't reveal that. Right? No. All will be revealed. Don't worry. You'll have to come back and interview me when we're doing the junket for that.
Were you a big fan of punk beforehand? Anyway, that's something I can ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of a real big fan of like 70s and 80s and 90s music. Anyway, I love all types of music, but I loved some of the Sex Pistols songs. But being able to listen to more of their songs, which I didn't know about, that's been really fun, because I always like to listen to have certain songs for characters. Like I like on the drive into work, I like to listen to a song that'll get me in that headspace. So for this, it's been really cool. So my final question, really, I mean, it just sounds like you've been quite busy of late, but I just think that as someone from the kind of inside the industry, does it feel like things are kind of getting a bit more normal now, shooting now? Because obviously I'm assuming that there's so many kind of COVID guidelines and stuff in place. Is that just something that's becoming quite normal to everyone in the industry, or does it still feel like you're waiting for something to change and to get back to the way it was? Definitely waiting for it to change. It's funny, but it is becoming normal, because like on the job, the Sex Pistols job I'm doing at the moment, we have a COVID department. I find that hilarious that they've made a department for it. It's just, it's bizarre, isn't it? It's bizarre, but also necessary, because people need, in times like this, people need entertainment and people need new content to go on all the streaming platforms. And hopefully when cinemas and theatres reopen, we need a lot of content for that. So I'm glad that we're making it work, really. I feel so lucky to be doing this huge project, because it is massive. Within a pandemic, it's remarkable, really. And, many thanks to Disney and FX for making it happen. But the great thing is there does seem to be a lot of work for actors at the moment. Bizarrely, a lot of things, I suppose, because there's such a need for content, so many projects are going at the moment. And, luckily we've all got our COVID departments to help us get through it.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to all the people that work in the COVID departments, I really hope those departments get shut down within the next year. I hope we won't need them after this summer. But thank you so much for speaking to me today. It's much appreciated. And,
thanks for having me.
Can't wait to see the Johnny Rotten thing. I really can't.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey